Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. First, I want to thank Beth Stern for not only getting Howard here, for getting him to stay here. And I want to thank Howard because he is the only man in America that thinks he needed a passport to come to Cleveland. Thank you. My dear friend, it is the truth. He was my first, my only choice to induct us tonight. And I'm very grateful. I've been writing this speech since I first strummed a broom and sang it from the top of the stairs of my childhood home. I've actually written it many ways, many times. Some days, I write the thank you speech. Other days, I write the fuck you speech. Writing it was in fact therapeutic for me in a lot of ways. I certainly see things differently tonight than I would have 10, 20, 30 years ago. And in the end, it's all about time. It took a lot of people to get us here tonight, and not all of them were hairstylists and clothing salespersons. See, I was first introduced to music at 7 years old when my mother brought home a guitar that she had bartered for, along with the Kenny Rogers Learn to Play Guitar record. As a kid, my parents took me to lessons where this guy in a little cubicle, smoking a pipe, he opened the book to a bunch of scales and he tortured kids with his smoke and his lack of interest. After a couple weeks, I quit, threw that guitar down the basement stairs, conveniently breaking a tuning peg. That guitar lay there in the dark until I was around 15, and a man named Al Parinello moved into our neighborhood. Al played in the lounges and the wedding circuit. He was a great guy, a family man. He took an interest in a couple of us neighborhood kids, and he taught us a couple of songs. Al's teaching style was much different than that of the pipe-smoking, scale-playing, half-hour nap-taking session the man at the strip mall gave me. Now, I didn't learn quickly, and I was by no means any good, but Al showed me the magic of a song. First it was the Animals, the version of House of the Rising Sun. We slogged through that. Then it was Thin Lizzy and the Boys Are Back in Town. Truth is, I did a half-assed job at practicing, but I went back, and after a couple of weeks, Al lost his cool demeanor, and the hip dad yelled at me. He said, "Don't waste my fucking time. If you don't know this next week, we're done." It worked, because I've been practicing my craft every single day. Al passed away in 1995. The initials AP have been carved on my guitar ever since, and they serve as a reminder to practice every day. And so for that, I say thank you, Al Parinello. Every kid who ever played in their garage dreams of being in a big rock band, and I was no different. It began in my buddy's basement in the backyard. We played in the local talent show, came in second place, worked up to block dances, then the clubs where we got a glimpse of what we thought was the big time. At 17, I started a big 10-piece band called the Atlantic City Expressway, playing the songs of my childhood heroes. The Animals and Thin Lizzy, of course, but especially Bruce Springsteen and a lot of Southside Joe. David Bryan was in that band. He used to do his homework in the basement of the Fast Lane before we'd play our set. And I want to take a moment here to thank David's dad, Big Ed, because I know he's here tonight watching down over us. So thanks, Big Ed, for your band, for cheering us on. By 18, I could already see that there were two paths in music. You either play for fun, or you play for keeps. The cover band circuit was where the money was, where the girls were, but where the future was not. So I quit my own cover band, and I joined an original band as their lead singer. The rest didn't last very long, but I do appreciate Jack Ponte, whose band it was, for taking me in and nurturing the earliest me. By the fall of 1980, I was out of high school, I was out of the rest, I was fronting my own band wherever and whenever I could, and running errands at a place called the Power Station. The next couple of years were my college. Write, sing, play, watch, learn, repeat. I saw a lot of the men and the women who make up this Hall of Fame walk in and out of those studios. The Stones, Queen, Bowie, Bruce, Dylan, Cher, Chic. I did hand claps on a Little Steven record. And I sang on the Star Wars Christmas record. I remember Mark Knopfler, who was dating the studio manager at the time, asking me to borrow a copy of his album, Making Movies. I told him I'd loan it to him if he'd sign it for me. I still have that album, and I remain a huge Dire Straits fan. So thank you, Mark and Dire Straits. By 1982, I had written and recorded a bunch of songs, but one of them stood out. It was called Runaway. And after sending that cassette to every label, every manager I could think of, I thought, who is the loneliest man in the music business? The DJ. There was a new station in New York City called WAPP. It was so new that there wasn't even a receptionist, so I was able to walk in and get the attention of John Lastman and the DJ, Chip Hobart. I told him about the song on the cassette and the frustration of not getting any label to listen to it. Well, Chip did listen, and he told me he thought it should be included on their homegrown record of local music. A few months later, Runaway was playing on the radio not only in New York, but in Tampa, in Chicago, in Detroit, in Denver, and in other markets. Now, I had all the attention I needed, but I needed to showcase the songs. What I needed was a band. So I called David. He was still playing, but he was also going to college to be a doctor, like his nice Jewish mother said he should. I met Alex Such, who was in a cover band called Phantom's Opera. Alec was the coolest cat on the cover circuit scene. He was the rock star in his band. Alec was also in an original band called Message with Richie Sambora. They were doing a summer tour supporting Joe Cocker and promoting their own EP. And Alec knew the baddest ass drummer in the land, Tico Torres. I swear, back at the Fast Lane, I once watched Tico beat a drum to death. He was the hardest hitting sledgehammer I had ever seen. Tico was already a married man, had a house, was in a band called Frankie and the Knockouts, was already on the road with a record deal and hit singles, and I needed to convince him to give that up, to rehearse in a storefront and play with a 21-year-old version of me. Part of me thought, no chance. The rest of me was pretty confident. So that Sunday I went to his house and I played him the songs. I told him about the radio exposure and I hoped that he might help me out. Tico took a shot, and I've been his singer ever since. So David, Tico, Alec, and Snake Sabo, who went on to form Skid Row and was helping me out at the time, agreed to do a couple of these promotional shows. And one night, at the Fountain Casino in Aberdeen, New Jersey, Alec invited Richie Sambora to come and see us play. Richie came backstage and we hit it off. Legend has it, he told me that he was going to be in the band. And I said, well, let's get together and write a bit. Let's see if our styles worked. Let's see if it works for the vision. It didn't take me but a minute to realize that Richie was a great singer, a great writer, and a great player. And it didn't take him too long to agree to join us. The success of Runaway led to a deal with Polygram that I signed in 1983, and the label remains our home to this day. With a band at my side, a record deal in place, and a song on the radio, it was time to look for a manager. Several of them showed interest, each offering something unique. But Doc McGee just wanted it more. And I remember, back in '83, going into a record store with him, talking about music, looking at album sleeves and touring programs. We talked about my influences and the big names of the day, like Van Halen, like Journey. He told me we could be like them, only bigger. He believed it, I believed him. I signed that deal. The record came out in 1984 and Runaway cracked the top 40. We toured the US with the Scorpions, and then we went to Europe with Kiss, and then on to Japan for the first time with Whitesnake. We learned how to win over a crowd that doesn't know your name, doesn't know your songs, or even understand your language, all in 40 minutes or less. So to all of us, to all of those who allowed us to open for you and to learn from you along the way, I say thank you. In '85, a second record, a couple of top 40 hits, another year on the road, another American Gold record, set us up for the make or break third album, Slippery When Wet. That record would change our lives. There was the magic combination of our band, Bruce Fairburn, Bob Rock, Desmond Child, our A&R guy, Derek Schulman, Doc, a little known studio called Little Mountain in the city of Vancouver. Nothing would ever be the same. You give love a bad name, wanted dead or alive, living on a prayer. we started having consistent hits and we finally became a headliner. And everyone that was involved in that record and the tour brought out the best in each other. Many millions of records and hundreds of shows later came the New Jersey album and another 5 top 10 singles. Millions more records, hundreds more shows, same team, same results. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It almost killed us. But we live to become stronger, so thank you to all of those who helped write that chapter. To Bruce Fairburn, who produced Slippery and New Jersey, thank you for your trust, your faith, your patience, and your kindness. Your memory lives every time that we hear those records. And thank you, Doc McGee, for teaching us the ropes. Doc, you were our Colonel Parker, and P.T. Barnum rolled into one. By 1992, rock music got the kick in the teeth that it needed with the Seattle scene. The grunge movement was a turning point in many of my peers' careers. The big happy anthems of the hedonistic 80s had gone out of style. And there were many of you out there who figured that we'd be gone with it. Then I opened Bon Jovi Management with Paul Korzelius. Self-management certainly wasn't the most fashionable statement an artist could make, but thanks to Paul, BJM had a pretty good 25-year run. As time marched on, Keep the Faith reinvents the band, we continue having hits, and now we're playing the biggest stadiums in the world. Alec leaves the band and Hugh McDonald joins the tour. As the 90s wind down, we're right in the next chapter of our career. We ring in the new century and introduce ourselves to a new generation with It's My Life and the Crush record, followed by Bounce. In 2005, Jack Rovner joins the team and he challenges the status quo. With Jack's help, the band wins a Grammy and plants the seeds for what ultimately becomes the JBJ Soul Foundation. John Shanks also enters the picture as our producer, collaborator, support system, and on Have a Nice Day, Richie and I go on to write Who Says You Can't Go Home. We're the first rock band to have a #1 country single. But then it's 3 more #1 albums in a row. Lost Highway, The Circle, What About Now? Things are actually going incredibly well. So if this was one of those behind the music episodes, this is where this shit hits the fan. So during the Because We Can tour, Richie's no longer standing at my side. Once again, Phil X has to answer his phone and answer the call. Tico has not 1, but 2 emergency surgeries, and we have to actually have a replacement drummer sit in for 11 stadium shows. One night I'm looking out at 80,000 faces at Rock in Rio. I turn to David and I think, holy shit, I'm back in a cover band. Hugh, now Phil, eventually Tico, David and I play another 105 shows and still managed to have the year's highest grossing tour. By 2014, 2015, I'm dealing with record company turmoil as well as the unexpected departure of my creative partner and guitar player. Then it's Jerry Edelstein, my rock, my lawyer, and my godfather. He gets ill and he has to retire. There was so much loss during this time. My voice had no interest in working for me any longer. I swear even my guitar gave me the finger. So to paraphrase Malcolm X, my wife reminded me that there is no better lesson than adversity. And I sought help anywhere I could find it. Professional as well as spiritual guides in the form of my angels, Katie Agresta, Mary Jo Dupree, John Shanks, Steve Thaxton, Dave Grillo, Steve Cohen, Lou Cox, they all helped put me back together again. So when we went back in the studio in the spring of 2016, there was a renewed sense of pride and purpose. We ended up recording at the same studio where I used to be a gopher back in 1980. The same studio where I signed the record deal in Polygram in 1983 and where we extended that deal in 2015. And this time, just like the first time, there was an exuberance and a joy that was put into every single note that there was, because there was a feeling of a band working together with something to say. This House Is Not For Sale was a band record. David, he stepped up and he filled the creative and emotional gaps that were left behind. Lemma, you've always been there for me, but on this record, you were doubly there, and I thank you, my brother. Tico, Hugh, Phil, Billy Falcon, they all poured their hearts into this record. John Shanks produced every note of this record with pride and with urgency to deliver for me what I needed, what I wanted, what we stood for. This House Is Not For Sale enters the charts at number 1. And that brings us here amongst the class of 2018 in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So all I can say is congratulations, and thank you to all the artists for their memories and inspiration. To all of you who've been a part of this